Hello, you guys. Welcome to my channel, Jesus Wants You. I'm Nikki Pratt. This is chapter 8 because I cried out. We're almost done with the book. There is one more chapter after this. I will be finally have fulfilled my duty on this. I opt to do this because I kind of felt that, a lot of people, men and women alike, would hear some of these testimonials that, some of the people here in Shreveport, Bossier, have, decided to tell their story. And the author, Tamika Anderson, decided to write a book about it. And it has a lot of spiritual aspects to it. I felt that a lot of people could listen to this and take something with it and kind of maybe identify with some of the people in this book and learn to see what they did and how they got out of the situation and how God helped them through it, okay? So, with that said, I am going to begin to read chapter 8 of Because I Cried Out. This chapter is titled Altered by the Altar. Altered by the Altar. So, listen up. The vow. My friends made jokes about my being alone. They never saw me with any guy friends. It really was not like that at all. I had gotten excited about guys that I dated in the past, but the relationships went nowhere. Consequently, I decided that I had been choosing the wrong men for myself. I came to the conclusion that I would allow God to choose my next mate. I was heavily involved in my church, and I had taken a 5-year vow of celibacy. My pastor witnessed it. My goal was to meet my God-ordained mate within the 5-year span. In the meantime, I spent a lot of time studying my Bible. A girlfriend of mine, Cal, had been deployed to Germany. We emailed each other back and forth. I received an email from her that stated, "Lila, I know a guy that will be perfect for you." My friends were always trying to attach me to somebody. They could not stand the idea that I was a woman without a man. How did she know what would be perfect for me? Of course, I entertained her with questions like, how does he look? What is his occupation? She readily responded, he serves in the Navy with me, and he is my fiancé's roommate. I do not want to date anyone younger than me, Cal. No, girl. He appears to be older than you. I can't wait for you to meet him. I question if she even knew my exact age. 2 months later, Cal and her boyfriend returned from Germany. It was the month of my 33rd birthday. Cal and some of my other friends had given me a surprise birthday party 2 weeks later. Of course, she told me about the party. I guess the surprise was that they thought enough to give me one. She phoned me that evening with the news about my surprise guest. Lila invited Todd to your party. Who? I already told you about him in the email. You will meet him tonight. Here we go again. I thought to myself, I was fairly relaxed about the situation. I knew there would be quite a few people there, so I did not have to direct all my attention to this blind date. When I stepped into my party, I scanned the room. I saw the surprise guest before he saw me. I was able to pick him out because I knew everyone there but him. He continued to look around in an attempt to identify which girl was me. I eyed him for some seconds. I did not like what I saw. He was clean-shaven with a neat haircut. He was well-dressed with a nice physique. There was just one thing that I could not get with. His head seemed a little too large. He did not meet my physical standards at all. I did not consider him hideous. He just wasn't my type. Cal grabbed my hand and we rushed over to meet him. Todd, this is Lila, the birthday girl. Lila meets Sergeant Todd Michaels. I smiled as if I was interested. It's nice to meet you, Todd. It's nice to meet you too, Lila. Although I wasn't interested, I did not want to seem rude. Will you excuse me, Todd? I have some guests that I have not spoken to yet. That was my excuse to leave his presence. I attempted to make small talk with each individual guest so I would not have to engage him. By midnight, the party was over. There were guests lingering around, including Todd. I left them all there and went home. By the time I got home and opened the door to my house, my cell phone rang. Hello? I wanted to talk to you, but you left so fast. And this is Todd. Cal had given me your phone number. I would really like for us to get together so that we could talk and maybe get to know one another. If only he could see the faces I was making while he talked. I did not want to be bothered. Okay, Todd. If I have some free time, I'll call you. Well, I have a graduation to attend on tomorrow. Maybe I can visit you at home after that. I perceived that this Todd person was rather persistent. What time is the graduation? You aren't trying to visit me late night, are you? I questioned defensively. It will not be late. I will call you before I come. Okay, I'll talk to you on tomorrow. I wanted him to know that I was not interested in any late night rendezvous. I was a lady with boundaries, and he needed to know that initially. I was in my 4th year of celibacy. The next evening, he phoned me around 8 p.m. I gave him the privilege of visiting. He showed up in his Navy uniform. A lot of women like to see men in uniform. He did not impress me in his uniform. I didn't like his skin, and his head did not appear to be any smaller than before. I was able to pick out all the things I did not like about Todd. For a second, I had a thought. Who was I kidding? The man was really nice and respectful. It was not like I had somebody to talk to or attend a movie with. I could give Todd an opportunity to be a person I can talk to over the phone. Nothing had to come out of this. That night we talked about an hour concerning our views about our lives and future goals. Somewhere in the middle of the discussion, I expressed my current stand at that time. It was a better time as any to tell him about my position, so I interjected. Okay, Todd, I have taken a vow of celibacy, and I am not looking for a sex partner. I waited for his response. Lila, I think that is beautiful, and it is good to know. I don't think that I could appreciate a woman if she was sleeping around and not having any boundaries. I respect you and appreciate you for that. I was stunned but mostly impressed. It made me tingle on the inside that he responded in that way. Of course, I did not say anything to him about it. I was actually turned on. For the first time, I noticed that he had a beautiful smile. He earned a star in my book. 2 days later, he called me and asked me out to the movies. I tried to avoid going. So I told him that I had already had plans for the weekend. He asked, can I call you during the weekday to make arrangements for a weekend date? I made my rules strict. Yes, you need to call me on a Monday to set a date with me for the weekend. Early Monday morning, he called my office to set a date. He asked if I would politely pencil him in for a weekend date. I was highly impressed. He caught me off guard. What did you have in mind, Sergeant Michaels? Maybe a movie or a dinner? Only what is going to be comfortable for you. He was such a gentleman. I can still remember his beautiful straight white teeth. His smile was almost like the joy of the Lord. We agreed on weekend plans. The night of our date, he allowed me to choose the restaurant and the movie. He opened and closed doors for me. He was very charismatic. I was elated with his mannerism, but I kept my guard up. When the night was over, I thanked him. I did not allow him to kiss me at the end. Of course, he did not try. My vow of celibacy was so serious. I was afraid that if I had given him any type of affection, it would lead to sexual intercourse. I gloated over our date, but I would not bring myself to call him. I made it a point that he would have to call me. He did call. Todd and I talked frequently and dated sporadically for a 6-month period. He did nice gestures for me. I was very appreciative. I was set on not hugging or kissing him. I was too scared something would come of it. It was soon after that he received news about his deployment. He had a 3-month period before he would leave and go to Iraq. I knew that I was going to miss him, especially his daily text messages. Throughout the day, he would text to ask me if I needed anything. He always wanted to know if he was able to do anything to make my day better. He wanted me to know that he would be there for me if I needed anyone. I really wanted to hug him after all of that. He only called me at respectable times of the night. He wanted to know my sleep schedule to avoid interrupting my beauty rest. When he made his nightly phone calls, he would say, "Lila, tell me all about your day. I just need to hear you talk about yourself and all the events surrounding your workday. Tell me the good, the bad, and the ugly. Just express yourself. This helps me get to know you." He made me feel like a woman. I was a highly respected lady. I had to admit, I had never been treated that way. On our date nights, Todd would call me before we went out. He told me about all of his outfits that he had the luxury of choosing from. He could not decide for himself, so he asked my opinion. "Lila, I know you can't see them, but from what I have described, which would you like to see me in or on our date?" I found myself choosing most of his outfits over the phone. After this period of pouring myself out to him, having long conversations and our getting to know each other, I fell in love with him. I never officially overlooked the physical concerns that I had for him, but his inner beauty captured my heart. I knew that I was getting a little too into him, so I made plans to meet with my pastor. The following week of my love revelation, I had a conference with my pastor. I told her that my flesh was getting really weak. We prayed that God would bring my flesh under subjection so that I won't do anything that I would regret. The next week was New Year's Eve. Todd was going to Iraq within the next 7 days. He escorted me to a New Year's Eve party on a military base. He asked me if I wanted to dance to a slow song. I agreed to do so, which was rather shocking. The DJ was playing Mary J. Blige's "Can't Be Without You, Baby." When I heard the verse that said, "Ladies, look him right in the eyes and tell him," before she could finish the verse out, I plunged my lips into his face and locked my tongue around his. I kissed him for the first time in 9 months. It felt so good and so right. We were both lost in the moment. When we stopped, he was in total amazement and at a loss for words. He finally came to reality. "Look, Lila, do not feel obligated to step outside of your boundaries." Sound like a nice gentleman, huh? Kissing is not outside my vow. Another man would be fine with what just happened. I do not want to be the reason why you cheat on God. I do not want to be that man to blame. After hearing that, I just wanted to scream, "I love you, Sergeant Todd Michaels." In preparation to leave Iraq, Todd made me power of attorney and gave me a lockbox to handle all of his personal and professional business. He moved out of his apartment and placed all of his furniture in storage. It wouldn't have made sense for him to pay rent while he was away. I was honored and privileged that he would trust me with all of his bank accounts, Social Security cards, tax returns, and other personal matters. I looked towards the heavens and thought, "Lord, you finally sent him." Thank you, Lord. I was on cloud 29. Todd left for Iraq. He was gone for 6 months. He emailed me every day and called me whenever he had the opportunity to do so. I realized that all of the pettiness that I did not like about him was stupid and trivial. This was a great man, I thought to myself. His skin could be fixed. His head could not be changed, but God made it beautiful just the way it is. I could no longer see all of those things. I saw his inner beauty. I saw Jesus in the flesh. I made sure that all of his important business was taken care of. I remember that Todd asked me at the beginning of our relationship if I knew how to cook. I told him that I knew how, but I only cooked once a week. He said he just wanted to know if I could. I always had a clean home before I met Todd. During his time in Iraq, I felt the need to clean more. I made sure that my pantry was always full. I found myself cooking 3 to 4 times weekly. I did not understand where all of the domesticated energy was coming from, but it didn't matter. I wanted to improve my lifestyle. After his 6-month deployment, he returned. I really missed him. Unfortunately, he received news that he may be deployed again to Saudi Arabia. Within the next 3 months, I suggested that he move in with me. I figured that it would make no sense for him to get another apartment when he would have to leave again. Of course, he hesitated. Lila, I do not want to put any strain on you. I told him that I did not see anything wrong with friends staying together. Todd, I think I am strong enough to handle it. We've known each other for 18 months. Todd moved in. It felt different having someone in the house with me. I prayed about it and was comfortable with our living arrangements. I did not tell any of my friends, and I definitely did not tell my mother. I already knew what everyone's response would be. Todd and I both agreed that at some point we both wanted to be married. I told him that I did not mind him living there, but I did not want to cohabitate longer than a year. I did not want a relationship that was not going anywhere. He said, I definitely want to be married one day. That answer was enough for me. Todd asked for a sum of all of his monthly expenses for living with me. I told him that he did not have to give me anything. Lila, you have me confused. I am not living on any woman for free. Well, honey, I respect that one. Ooh, shut up, Nikki, shut up. Well, let's divide the bills, I said. Lila, you pay the mortgage, and I have all the other expenses. This was not bad, considering all of my other bills exceeded my mortgage. I am an independent woman and can pay my own bills. Well, I don't really have to stay with you either, but since I took the offer, I would be responsible. I want to pay my way while living here. Todd and I slept in the same bed every night. We did not physically touch each other. We slept together with full set pajamas on. We understood our boundaries. All of my lingerie was put away in a box. I did not want to ever tempt him nor myself. The next month, I went to pay my car note. I found out that Todd paid it up 6 months in advance. I had a brand new car. I was livid. I felt schizophrenic. I could not believe that he tried to snatch my independence. He opened my mail and responded to it. He didn't even ask me. I had just felt love for him that morning, and now I felt vulnerable. I could not figure out where all of it was coming from. I confronted him that evening. He grabbed my hand and set me down. Let me tell you a secret. A man would do more for a woman that is taking care of herself and not expecting handouts from a man. He said that he admired my independence and my hard work. He thought it was unfair of me to ask my friends' husbands to assist me with manly things around the home. If I am in your house, I am compelled to do the manly things in this house. It took me a few minutes to internalize the message, but I did. I had so many emotions going on at one time. I did not know what to feel. He told me that the men in his family take care of their women. At that moment, I perceived myself as being his woman. I wanted to say, please, put a ring on my finger. He did not have to tell me we were an item. He showed me through his actions. Besides, I was good for another 6 months. My car note was paid up. I began to inquire about his mom, dad, and older sister. He talked to his sister every day. They appeared to be really close. I found out how close on the day she called me. Hello, Lila. I hope that you don't think that I am inappropriate. I just want to tell you that I love my brother and I do not want you to hurt him. I can understand how you feel, but that is a conversation that you should have with your brother. Todd and I are adults. Well, I am just letting you know how I feel. Well, I love him too. There was silence on the phone. I could not believe that I said that. That came out of my mouth. Neither one of us could say anything. It was discomfort over the phone. We cordially said our goodbyes and hung up. Todd came home hours later. He did not greet me as he normally had. He stared at me and said, "Lila, do you really love me?" I was afraid to respond, but I said, "Yes, is it a problem?" He smiled really big, grabbed me, and hugged me. He then asked me if I was sure. Yes, I am sure. We were both tearful. There were so many emotions running wild. It was that moment that I came to a realization I did not know how to be affectionate with him without going outside of my vow. I tried to reciprocate a hug. I did not get that close to him. I gave him a semi-hug while patting him on his back. Into me see. Into me see. Todd worked on the military base every day. He would get off before I did. By the time I arrived home, dinner would be prepared. One evening I came home from a very tiresome day. When I opened the door, he had soft music playing and lights were dim. He was dressed in all white tank top and basketball shorts. He looked at me in the eyes and said, "Okay, I am going to make love to you tonight." I was speechless. He led me to the bathroom and told me that my bath water was already waiting for me. I disrobed and he bathed me for the first time. He then took a towel and dried my skin. He wrapped the towel around my body and led me into the kitchen. I was thinking, he could have informed me that he were going to break the vow. After we had gotten in the kitchen, he cleared all the gadgets from the countertop. He lifted me up and placed me on the cleared countertop. He had shampoo, conditioner, and other smell-good items in his reach. The words on the bottle to describe the shampoo were rich, milky, and soothing. He grabbed the shampoo and conditioner bottles and poured the contents into his hand. He began to shampoo my hair and massage my scalp. It felt like heaven. I closed my eyes and made small groans. He said, "Lila, this is what I call intimacy." Wow. Look at y'all. Dirty minds. After shampooing and conditioning my hair, he towel dried it. He then picked me up in his arms and carried me off to the bathroom. He lit some fragrant candles and turned the bedroom lights off. He laid me down flat on my stomach on the neatly made bed. He secured the towel around me so that only my shoulders were exposed. He kneeled across the bed and over my body. He took oils and began to massage my shoulders. His strong yet nicely manicured hands embraced my neck. He began to motion his hands and thumbs between my shoulders. His strong yet nicely manicured hands embraced my neck. He began to motion his hand and thumbs between my shoulders. He rubbed firmly and then gently, then firmly, then gently. My flesh was screaming, "Todd, take the towel off." He responded, "If at any point you are uncomfortable, tell me. I will stop." All I can say is, don't stop. Then he began to massage my entire back. "Lila, tell me the stress of your day." As he continued to rub my body up and down with oil, my mouth was open, but I could not speak. I had lost all control of my emotions. Todd continued to woo me. This was the first time that I did not cringe. I had no defenses. I loosened the towel and turned over. Todd and I were face to face. He looked at me with uncertainty. I wanted Todd to do whatever he had in mind. He pondered his next move, but refrained from going any further. It was over. We had no sexual penetration. I'm going to say that again. We had no sexual penetration. He did not even ask for it. It was the first time I had ever had an experience like this one. He then asked, "Was it as good for you as it was for me?" I said yes, but in my mind, that was corny. What had just happened? The next morning, I rolled over to see Todd in the bed with all of his clothing on. I was in such a good mood. We both got up and got ready for church. He went to his church and I went to mine. On my way to church, I thought about the night before. I was in a trance. I thought that Todd was going to rip my clothes off. I thought he could no longer go without having sex with me. I was ready to do whatever he wanted to do. My mind was made up. I was going to give in to him, but only if he was the initiator. I was not going to be the one to initiate sex. It would have to be him. His idea of making love was always in the form of a massage, a bath, or foot pedicure. As days went on, I realized that he wanted me to be the initiator as well. He refused to go against the vow that I had made for myself. I was second-guessing the vow. This man was just too good to be true. He was too incredible. I wanted to know what they were teaching him at his church. So I started going with him. I needed to hear his pastor's messages. If Todd was learning from church, then surely there were more men in the congregation like him. I had a few friends that could benefit from men of his type. I know some of you right now are saying, over here, right? So, it did not matter how I explained my relationship to my friends no more, believe me. They all thought that Todd and I were having sex. They knew how wonderful he was to me. I just hated the fact that they thought I was lying. Why couldn't they see that I was pure? 2 months later, I was released from my job and became depressed. Todd told me not to worry about working. He encouraged me to go to school. I had to touch him just to see if he was real. I began school to work on my bachelor's degree. I had obtained an associate's degree some years ago. He was highly supportive of the situation. Marriage ready. We had almost been living together for a year. Out of nowhere, I started buying wedding magazines and leaving them all over the house. We would go window shopping, and I always managed to point out beautiful diamond rings. Any wedding that I was invited to, it was mandatory that he be my date. Todd did not say anything. He took it all in. Todd and I started to spend a lot of money on repairs to my house. The space was becoming very limited. We started having a conversation about moving into a much bigger space. I explained to Todd that I did not want to continue to live together and not be married. I asked him, "Do we just need to date and live in 2 separate houses?" Todd never really elaborated on marriage, engagement, or anything related to it. He responded by saying, "Your moving in with me is not contingent on our getting married." He found a bigger house in a rural area. We were living an hour and a half away from the city. This was quite a distance from my family and friends. I gratefully sold my house and had money to sustain myself. He used his veteran's home loan to purchase the new house. I could not be on the loan because we were not married. He did, however, add my name to the deed. I thought that it was a nice gesture. At least I wasn't responsible for the loan, although my name was on the deed. Just then I had a moment of clarity. Maybe the new house was his engagement ring to me. It was just as big as the ring. He sold all of his bachelor pad furniture and gave some of it away to my friends. The new house was decorated with all of my furniture. Maybe he meant well by all of this. Somehow I still felt incomplete. Months had gone by. I had not seen a ring. Todd had not discussed it whatsoever. I felt that we had done enough to make this relationship marriage ready. I started to really get disturbed in my heart. Todd's action said we were together, but my mind was echoing, "This man is never going to marry you." Our relationship was not advancing. It appeared that everyone around me was getting married. I was so caught up in weddings that I found myself hosting a reception at my new house for a girl that I hardly knew. I was so into my own world. The distance between my girlfriends and I had limited our contact. Anytime we had a chance to do lunch, I took advantage. On one particular lunch date, I went out with Cal. She was telling me all of the latest news with our other friends. Unknowingly, Cal said, "Lila, we've all missed you. We know that you have been playing wifey and we didn't want to intrude." She continued to talk and laugh. I laughed too, but not on the inside. She said that I had been playing wifey. She did not mean any harm. That playing wifey statement penetrated my soul. I did not feel good about it. I was angry, but it was the truth. We lived in our new house for 4 months. Then, when Todd decided to take me to the East Coast to meet his family, I met his mother, father, and older sister. Nothing was unusual about the family. They were extremely nice to me and very hospitable. His sister surprised me and gave me the utmost respect. During our visit, his father made a statement that pondered my heart. He looked at his wife and said, "I believe we met our daughter-in-law." We stayed an entire week and returned home. I felt privileged. I returned home and resumed all of my feelings of depression and frustration. Todd noticed my unhappiness. We stopped going out to eat together unless another couple accompanied us. I would not wear anything fancy for him. I stopped bringing up the subject of marriage. I would read all of my wedding magazines in a secluded place. I stopped decorating and cooking big meals. I was building up anger day by day. I became very moody, cold, and at times very silent. I began to read my Bible again, but not much deep studying. I was slightly angry with God. I did everything God asked me to do and got results of nothing. God knew that I went into this relationship with a vow. I did my part. Where was God? Where were all of God's promises? Todd and I became more distant in the house as days went by. The breakup. He received a phone call that his maternal grandfather died. I told Todd that I would go back home with him for emotional support. He told me not to miss any days of school. I felt helpless. I wanted him to ask me to go, but he never did. I guess he realized that our relationship was not at its best. I figured the least that I could do was assist him with getting a flight home. So I called all the airlines and was able to purchase his airline ticket. I made it a point to be there if he needed me. 2 weeks had gone by. I called his house to check on him. All of his conversations were short and vague. It was all I could expect in his time of grief. Todd returned from the funeral. He told me that he was going back home the next month for the Christmas holidays. He had planned to stay there for 6 weeks. Why so long, I asked. I want to be there to support my grandmother. She needs a man around the house. She doesn't have my grandfather anymore. I respected his position and allowed him to be in it. There were some days when he would share his feelings, and some days he was disconnected. Because of his grief, we hardly talked. It was 2 weeks before he was leaving to be with his grandmother. I suggested that we talk. I think it is in our best interest to have some time apart. We are both going through some emotional things. I don't want to break up. Let's just spend a little time away. My girlfriend Cal had been deployed to Korea for 6 months, so I would stay in her house. She wanted someone to take care of her house, and I definitely needed to be alone. Todd responded, "I understand. I'll make sure that you get all of your mail." I packed my bags and moved into Cal's home. Todd was living in the rural area, and I was back in the city. I did get my mail. However, I was miserable. I was not comfortable living in someone else's home. I felt so displaced. After 2 days of living there, I decided to call him. When he answered the phone, I was crying. "Todd, it is all your fault that I am living like this. I did not put you out. You said you needed space, and so you left." That's when I let him have it. I started yelling and crying uncontrollably. "This is Cal's house. Now you have your own house. I do not have a house. Why am I always in someone else's house? When you did not have a house, I invited you in. I made sure that you were comfortable in my house. I feel as if you tricked me this entire time. You conned me into giving up my house. You made me think that we were going to get married. You separated me from my friends who I know would have shed some light on our relationship. You convinced me that what we had was going somewhere. None of this is fair. He calmly responded, you know, Lila, you're right. I think you do need some time alone. I got off the phone with him. I was confused and ecstatic. We did not talk. He left the next few weeks to be with his grandmother. His sister called me to see if I was coming home with Todd. I told her I wasn't because I was in school. She asked if I was okay. I told her that all was well, and we got off the phone. I thought that the call was rather strange. I never heard from her again. Todd and I talked twice while he was away. The times we did talk, his conversation had not improved. He was still reserved. He had very little to say. I decided to refrain from calling him after that. I began conversing with my friends again. One girlfriend of mine went to lunch one afternoon. She began venting about her relationship problems. I told her that she was taking entirely too much from her man and that she should let it go. Suddenly it hit me in the face like cold water. Everything I was telling her, I needed to be telling myself. It took me to hear myself. Besides, I hadn't let anyone else in my world to give me advice. Todd returned from the East Coast after his 6 weeks. It was a new year, and I had not seen him since he left before the holidays. He contacted me to come by his house. The next day I went. I sat on the sofa close to him. We were in a nice discussion. He talked about his family visit and his grandmother's status. Right in the middle of everything, my emotions began to erupt like a volcano. I could not contain it. So I said, I knew that you had to be very busy considering that I did not get any phone calls. After saying that, I started feeling nausea as if I wanted to vomit. I felt really queasy. My body started to undergo some abnormal changes. He looked at me and said, Lila, you know that I love you. I think you care for me. Well, while I was at home, I had a lot of time to think. I started getting sicker and sicker. My face felt flush. Before he could finish what he was saying, I interrupted him. Can I please have some water? He went into the kitchen and brought out a glass of water. I started feeling like I was having an out-of-body experience. I felt like I was there, but I wasn't there. He resumed talking. He looked at me and said, I love you. But I think that we are better off being friends. In the next second, I began vomiting all over the sofa, the floor, and his pants leg. My body was overheated and I was extremely sick. I had never felt that sick in my life. I couldn't breathe. I was confused and felt somewhat schizophrenic. I could visualize myself beating him and hurting him badly. But my body would not move. I saw him moving his lips and talking to me, but I could not hear any of the words coming out of his mouth. I knew that if I moved, I would probably vomit again. I thought that if I altered my body, I would have a bowel movement. When I regained my hearing, I heard him say, when I needed you the most, you were not there for me. My grandfather died and you were not there. All this was so new to me. He started to name all the times I was not there for him. I began to vomit again. This time I got up and commenced to hitting, scratching, and kicking him. I knew that he was guilty of something. He had done something wrong. It was all over him. He would not admit it. He just looked at me in silence. Everything became silent. In the next minute, my cell phone rang. It was one of my bully girlfriends. I was crying and told her that Todd broke up with me. She pulled up to his house in a matter of minutes. She asked me if I needed her to smash his windows and deflate his tires. I told her not to and that I was okay. Somewhere in the middle of me talking to her, I blacked out. When I came back to my reality, I had driven almost 2 hours away into another city. I had very little gas and had not noticed. I refilled the tank and went back to Cal's house. I went back to Todd's house the next day. Todd, please don't leave me. I love you. Don't do this to me. His response was, I still think that we are better off friends. I spent the next week not eating. I complained to my bullied girlfriend about Todd. She told me, don't ever beg a man to stay in your life. She just did not know. I love that man. In my quiet time at Cal's house, I was alone. I felt like God needed to hear me out. God, why did you do this to me? I respected you. I honored you. I gave you the glory. I praised you. I did what you asked me to do. I saved myself. I did it your way. Why would you do this to me? After ranting and raving, I heard God for the first time in a long time. He said, you did this to yourself. You did this on your own. You would not let me. Hearing that was a real revelation. I had actually gotten away from letting God choose my mate. I was forcing Todd to be that mate for me. The other thought that occurred was that all of this was happening in the month that ended my 5-year vow of celibacy. Sex. I continued to call Todd on a weekly basis. A lot of my belongings were still at his house. I was always able to come up with an excuse to go there and see him. I did not know who I was anymore. I lost all of my pride and dignity. I was like I did not care about having boundaries. I became very bold. I would call him whenever I felt the need to do so. If I needed something for my car, he would help me. If something needed repairing, I would call and he would come. Any nice gesture that he did for me was a sign of hope for restoring our relationship. I tried to stay optimistic. 3 months later, the military sent Todd to some training school 6 hours away. I drove all the way there to see him. It was during this visit that we had sex with physical penetration for the first time. Well, what do you know? It was absolutely horrible. I hated it. I felt as if I wasted a lot of time and energy on it all. I wanted to charge him for gas money. I wanted to tell him that he owed me a house, a car, a life, and everything else that counted. The next day we had sex again. It was absolutely worse than the day before. I could not believe it. I really could not get into him. After the weekend was over, we hugged and said our goodbyes. When I returned home, I rented a moving truck and some neighbors helped me move all of my belongings out of his house. I stayed at Cal's another month until I moved into my own loft. I returned back to my prayer life and got back into studying the Word of God. The very next year, Cal called me to tell me that Todd was getting married. I asked her about his bride-to-be. She said that it was some girl he had been best friends with for 13 years. Repositioning. In the church that I grew up in, a lot of emphasis was placed on getting a husband. My earlier mentors never went in depth about being a true wife. The image that I learned about being a wife was that a woman was supposed to be seen and not heard. My father told me that a man did not want a woman that was loud and half naked. He told me that she is to remain a mystery to a man until he is with her as a wife. So my church image was that a woman should wait on God and position herself for a mate. That was my reasoning for the vow of celibacy. I wanted to return to my earlier teachings of the Christian faith. I actually made myself believe that I was pure because I was not having physical sex with Todd. I expected my peers to see me as pure. How could they? They were only going by what was being presented. The presentation was not very different from what others thought about our relationship. I thought that if I had taken this vow, I would look clean inside and outside. This was far from the truth. We did everything in that house that a married couple would do except for sexual penetration. God revealed to me that we made love in our hearts. The whole kitchen and bedroom scene was considered the highest level of intimacy that any couple could have. Physical sex did not happen, nor did it have to. We were in the act without penetration. Physical sex is additional to intimacy. As women, we have it confused. We believe that sex is the highest level of intimacy, but it is not. Sex is a form of intimacy, but not the highest level. This is why a lot of relationships are challenging. Sex cannot sustain a relationship without true intimacy. That night was the most intimate night that I have ever had with anyone. In fact, it was the most intimate night that I had with Todd. I take full responsibility for the part I played in the relationship. I knew that I wanted marriage before and during my involvement with Todd. Marriage was a topic I should have discussed periodically along the way. Instead, I waited until I reached my boiling point. I specifically told him that I did not want to shack after a year of living together. In the process, I compromised my standards. If that was the plan, I should have assessed my situation and stood my grounds. Due to my compromising, I became very irritable and bitter. It was nothing he did, but more of what I did not do. The marriage conversation should not be avoided. In fact, it is needed. The topic may be discomforting for some of us. However, it gives you a compass point of where your relationship is or not headed. Men and women that are dating should have talks about the goals of their relationships early on. You may run the risk of losing your beau, but at least you will have an idea if the relationship is a waste of time. Trust me, the risk is worth taking. One valuable lesson learned is to go beyond a person's physical appearance. Sure, physical attraction is a plus, but the truth of a human being lies beneath the skin. I consider Todd to be a really nice gentleman. Once I embraced that part of him, the blinders came off of my eyes. I saw his inner beauty. He had become the perfect man. I began to see his perfect looks and perfect height. There may have been times when we have missed out on a good thing because we focus so much on the physical. Oh yeah, remember when Todd made the statement, "You're moving in with me is not contingent on us getting married"? Today, that statement sounds a little different now that we are apart. The statement was so broad that I made it mean what I wanted it to. I wanted to believe that he meant just because you are moving in with me does not mean that we are not going to get married. Now I know what he meant. Just because you are moving in with me does not mean that we are getting married. See the difference in the mindset of then versus the mindset of now? My response should have been, elaborate, please. As women, we do it quite often. We make situations be whatever we want them to be. A lot of times the situation is contrary. Todd was not ordained to be my life mate, but helped me to understand the concept of intimacy. He spent a great deal of time getting to know me as a woman. He talked to me and he listened to me. He heard my most inner thoughts. I was intrigued by this. I know that I want that kind of intimacy when I am married. I want to know my husband's heart. I want to really get to know him. I want him to know me in the same manner. Moving in with Todd was a turning point. It was that shift which forced some reality on me. We made a shift in location, but our steps toward marriage stood still. I stopped letting God guide me in reference of obtaining a mate. I took matters in my own hands, only to realize that I could not force the man to be my mate. No one can force a person to be their marital partner. Just because a man is nice to you and says nice things about you is not a license to try to get married. Today I am back on track with reading God's Word and fellowshipping at my church. I am seeking God today, and I need to hear His voice every step of the way. This time, I want Him to make it plain. I need to hear these words. Lila, it's okay. This is one you can marry. Until then, I wait. Keep thy heart with all diligence, for out of it are the issues of life. Proverbs chapter 4, verse 23. It is 50 minutes, almost 50 minutes, you guys. I had a lot to say, but of course of the time, I cannot say. But if you have some comments you would like to share, or maybe there was something that you can relate to that you would like to share with me, please do so. I hope this has been a blessing and a lesson to you guys. Until then, see you next video. Thanks.